Hello, everybody. Welcome to this live stream where I'm looking to model an existing property. It's a residential building in the UK, um, and I wanted to create this live stream to show you some of the steps that I go through while modeling an existing building. So this I am just going to share my screen. So as you can see, this is the these are some of the images of the building. To begin with, some disclaimers. This is actually a live architectural project, and it's a residential building, and I have the information pack from the clients, which are in the form of these photographs that you will see. It's This building is it's a detached property, and it's based in Essex in the United Kingdom. I've just pulled up the floor plans, and just to give you a background, I have been to this property. I have taken some measurements using my digital tape measure and iPad on site. I've used Sketchup on iPad to do the initial sort of 2D sketch of the measured survey, which I'll show you in a second, but just to give you a general picture of what the building is and what we are going to model. These are the floor plans. It's a two-storied building. As I mentioned, it's a detached property. You'll see that on the ground floor, you enter through the ground floor. There's a staircase going up. We have the living room, the dining room, kitchen. There's a utility and a second living room, which the current owners used as a private dining space because this dining was too small. And as you climb up the staircase, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bedrooms with a family bathroom, and this bedroom here has an attached ensuite. Now, the image that you're looking in the top left corner is the back of the property. You can see it's a lovely sort of 1930s building, and stage one of the project is to model the existing building in SketchUp. I am using SketchUp 2022, and this is what I was able to draw using the SketchUp on iPad. Now, and I wanted to do a live stream video. I've been meaning to do this for a long time, and finally I've managed to set up everything and get it going. So hopefully you will join me through more of these live streams where because it's a live project, all the tips and tricks that I will be telling you during the live stream are what I generally use through my projects. Also, every mistake or every every sort of shortcuts that I use are again something that I do use day in and day out. So through my architectural projects. So hopefully it should help you understand how we use SketchUp to model an existing building. Now, just to continue on the background of this building, I've drawn the ground floor at because there are only 2 levels in this building, I've drawn the ground floor at level 00, and the first floor is around 2.6 meters from the finished ground floor level. So that's why I have modeled this or I've drawn this in SketchUp in 2D at 2 different levels. Now, and then what I also tend to do is draw a sketch of a quick section through the building. And so this is sort of between ground and first floor, underside of the first floor ground floor ceiling level, and then this distance is between first floor level and first floor ceiling level. To calculate the heights, in the UK at least, we have the pleasure sometimes of counting bricks, because it's so standardized that you get to count bricks and get to the height if you don't have a tape measure. But if you do have digital tape measure and all the survey kits, it becomes much more easier. I'm not a surveyor, I'm an architect by profession, so I've used the tools at my disposal during this project. So as you can see, I've gone through, counted the bricks and got the heights, and then drawn this height to get the internal and external heights of the building. Now I've made separate note of the door heights and window heights that are there through this property, which again I'll explain you as I go along. I won't be sort of counting bricks for those things, but we can actually do that as well while we are trying to get this model going. So without further ado, let's get started. Just to make this a bit more clear, because the ground and first floor are overlapping, let's start with the ground floor level. So I'll hide the first floor, and as you can see, it's a bit more detailed version of this ground floor plan. You can see that is the big living room, a little dining room, as you can see there, the kitchen, another living room, and a little utility that's in there. So let's start modeling the building, the existing building. So the first thing I start with is to just double check that I have closed loops. So I have all, so I'm able to create faces. Sometimes when you start doing 2D, you don't have faces created in SketchUp. So to begin with, just to close faces, you just redraw one of the edges and it starts filling in these faces. Sometimes it does an overfill that you don't need the extra face, so I just delete that. So we are only as a starting point, I'm only modeling the walls, and we'll go through the floors, the ceiling, the staircase during this modeling process. You will also see that you can see some text here, 3D text that I've added. These are actually a quick way of adding text notes on the iPad while you're measuring, and they come in when you open the SketchUp model that you created on the iPad. When you open them on your desktop, it these texts appear, whereas the text markup you'll have to refer to a separate screen on your iPad. I just like to do a combination of text notes and heights and stuff. So you can see that measure the ceiling height here, and it's 2343. So just let the first thing I do is, after I close all the boundaries and get these faces, I extrude or push pull these faces, and we know that that height is 2343. And the other thing I'd like to do is always keep my model clean. So these stray edges, because I know that this is a straight line, and there's no sort of exaggerated kink in these lines as I've drawn. This line can be erased, so I'd like to keep doing that. So I'll just continue doing the same thing, because I know that all these heights are going to the same or similar height, 2343, this underside of the ceiling. As I mentioned before, again, just going quickly through the model, cleaning up the process. This it may look like it takes a little bit more time and effort to do these cleanup exercises, but trust me, it helps you save a lot of time later on when you are cutting holes through the model and when you're trying to do more complex things. So just fairly simple start to the modeling process. Once I've extruded the model, also you may have noticed this box just flying around in air. That box is, I use it as a reference. If I go actually switch on the first floor, so sometimes what happens is when you're clicking on 2D lines, you don't tend to click on the right line, and it goes through and clicks on the line around it. That's why within the group, when it's a 2D drawing, I create a 3D box that helps me go into the group. So I know that if I double click into that, I am looking at the first floor line work, and when I double click there, I know that I'm looking at the ground floor line work. Once I've started extruding, I just delete this box, and it's just a nice thing to have while navigating 2D lines. So the next thing, I know that the heights of the doors are around 2075 throughout the property. So and again, I also know, looking at the if I look at the ground floor plan, here there's a door there, a door there, a few doors around the property. So what I tend to do is, let me just create this door opening, which is not there at the moment. Throughout the property, I just click on these edges that form the bottom of these door openings, and probably one more there, and then I move them up to 2070, which is the height of the doors, and then push pull all these doors into place. So just creates that door opening into that area. I missed the door. There you go. So it's if you have consistent heights, that's a good way of doing the door openings, rather than trying to do each edge and create this opening at one door each. You know, all doors are of if you know all the doors are of same height, then you can just extrude that and get that going. So again, that cleaning up process, I just like to keep my models clean, so I'm just trying to delete all the stray lines and yeah, just continue modeling. Now, now that the door openings are modeled, everything apart from the front door. Let me get the front door right. So we know that the wall thickness there is 250 thick, and I know it's the same height for the door opening as the other door, so I'm just going to extrude that through, and there you go. That's all our doors hopefully modeled. One more, missed out one, and that model there. Clean that line up a bit, and yeah, so we've got all our doors modeled. Now the next thing I like to model is the floor. One neat trick is to try and see if you are able to close the floor loop to create a internal floor. So what I'd like to do when I'm trying to model the floor is just close all the doors. There. Just close all the doors. Then you see that it finishes off the face for us to model the floor. So if you double click, it selects all the edges and the face. You Control C to copy it to clipboard, and this is a neat trick, because if I now undo what I just did, if I go back actually, if I now undo the drawings that I did, you see Sketchup doesn't undo the clipboard command. So now I can just go back and edit, paste in place, and it will actually remember the clipboard, the elements that you copied to the clipboard. So I just press Command G to make it a group, and I've got my floor. It's quite a neat thing to do. Now, when you have, in reality, when you have a floor in a building, the walls don't tend to go below the floor level. So the walls are built on top of the floor. So again, a neat way is you just close these edges that are there, and then you just do a quick cleanup. You don't need these walls. And in the example model, in the SketchUp modeling exercise that I do, I'm aiming not to use any of the plugins, and even if I use some of the plugins, which the names of which I'll mention while I'm using them, they would be free. You wouldn't have to pay anything, so you can go get those plugins. And I'm a big believer of understanding the basics before you use any intermediate or advanced techniques of plugins. You can always go at a later date, once you understand the native tools and how they operate and how SketchUp works. You can always go and explore plugins to make your modeling process that much more speedier. So in this live stream, I'm trying not to utilize any plugins that I may have generally used. So I'm doing the whole modeling exercise using native plugins. So that's the floor. I'm gonna push that and give it a thickness of 250 millimeters. Yeah, you could see that this is, and I can remove this temporary floor that I've had. So you can see that this now has a floor, so and the walls are ready. The next thing that I would like to model is, before we move on to the first floor, is the windows. When it comes to windows, I usually draw them during my measured survey. I usually draw them on a separate layer, and you won't be able to see that because it would be usually drawn at the base as the same level as the other line work for the floor plan. So I just, if I double click on that and zoom extend, so you'll see all the window lines that I have modeled. And what I tend to do is move these window lines to the top of the model, just so that we know, and if you hold the shift key, it will lock to the axis that you are moving it on. So if I want to move it in the red direction or green direction, I move it towards the green, hold the shift, and you see the green becomes bolder, and that means it's locked in that direction. The same thing goes for red. You can see that it's locked in that direction. Like to move it in blue, so I lock it to that direction, and there you go. So now I know where the windows are to this in this property. So those are the lines. The way I tend to draw the windows is pretty. This is a quick way of just drawing windows in SketchUp. So you just start by drawing roughly where the windows are through the property, and the various ways in which you can do that. You can use guides, you can draw the windows more accurately, and then start punching holes through the property. I like to kind of do it this way because I know that my walls are sort of the same thickness. So when I double click, it just punches a hole through the building. So let me just do that again. So the first time you push pull to create an opening, you just have to push it through till you see that sort of double color. That means it's snapping to the back face, and once you click on that, it disappears. But if you know that you're going to push pull it to the same distance, you just double tap, and SketchUp remembers the last distance that you push pulled it to, and it just keeps creating a hole. Now then I go around and line up the sides of the wall, which is one way of doing. Again, so it's so I start doing the jambs of these windows, and they just line up. We just try and line those edges up, and I think we're good here. I think I might have already done that. Just checking. This is where I started. Yeah. So the windows are now lined up. I missed one here. Just draw something here. Again, push pull. See, I didn't remember that, but line it up and line them up again. Now in this, when I was doing my measure drawing for this building, you can see I have two these back photos, back of the building photos were taken sort of late autumn, and this was taken during the recent snow that we've had in the UK. So that's why those pictures differ. This is still the same building, it's just covered in snow. So now I've done the measuring, but in case you are not able to measure it from the inside for any reason, furnitures were there. Again, in the UK, we are able to just count bricks and measure heights. But in this instance, I know for sure these windows are 7. I know these windows are 760 from the floor, that is, which is 00. So I've just drawn a cube outside, made 760. Now I know that all I need to do is inference. Once you start push pulling, you know, you can lock it to any height, you can match it to any height by just moving it up, but I know that it's all going to be the same height here. So this is a quick way, not that window, just looking at my notes here, but I know that most of these, not that window, but most of these windows are 760. So I've drawn that, and then I know that the lintel height is the same as the door height. So I've to pull it down to match the underside of the door. So you can see that this way we've done the jambs. Now we're doing the lintel or the soffit of the window to match with the door heights. So every elevation there seems to be a door that I can inference it to. So all the windows are now, or most of the windows are now in the right position except this one. This one I'll show you the technique where you can use guides. So you use the tape measure. I've set up a shortcut, but if you click on the tape measure tool and start drawing from the bottom, and I know again that this window is 1640 high from the finished floor level, so I'm just going to move this up and delete my guide. I don't like seeing guides, but yeah, that seems to be the size of the window. And this window, I've set up the shortcut for tape measure. I've changed it to D on my keyboard. So if I move that up, again, I know that the window is 1175 height. Now I'll pull it up to this guide. And where is the guide? I don't like seeing guides in my model as well. So right, now I know that all the windows have been correctly positioned, or the openings have been correctly positioned. So now I can delete this line drawing, and so I've done the doors, I've done the windows. Now we move on to the first floor. So if I click out of this, now you can see that the first floor has been modeled at the finished floor level of the first floor. So from this drawing, we know that the floor thickness between the ground and the first floor is roughly 285 mil. And what, even though we modeled the ground floor separate to the first floor, I do this because when I move on to the next stage in the modeling process, which is the proposed model, which hopefully will be a separate live stream, I tend to separate the ground floor and the first floor, and which makes it easier to present to the clients to see them, the two floors separately or together, you know how it works. So what I tend to do is I make sure that the external walls go up to, if I bring back the first floor model, external walls go up to the bottom of the first floor, finished floor level, while the internal walls stay to the underside, because the internal walls don't continue through to the next floor. So keeping that in mind, I just try and separate out all the internal walls from the external wall. So I'm just going around the building. I know that this is still an external wall, so I just carry on doing that. And this this is actually a deeper chimney. It doesn't go on to the first floor, but there's an external chimney breast, as if you look at that, yeah, that's how it is in reality. They have done a sort of a false chimney breast on the inside, is my guess, but we'll know more about that once we are on site. So when I start closing up these, you'll see that SketchUp starts to create these faces that are not, it doesn't know which face it needs to close, so it's ignoring these lines, but in reality I want a hole there, a hole there, and a hole there. So what I would do is redraw one of the edges and then delete these areas. That way, you know, you can see through, and SketchUp knows that I'd like to keep this as a closed loop and hence see the face of the top of the walls. Now I may not have explained why I did this external wall, just separated the external and internal edges, but that'll be clearer once I start modeling the first floor. But once I have separated the external wall area, I just lift it up to the underside of the first floor. So you'll now see that the internal walls stay there and the floor plate will go over this internal wall. So I'm just gonna again quickly clean up these areas, which is definitely one of my top tip. The more you use, the more you will understand that cleaning up after you've modeled the anything in SketchUp is really important. And it'll save you so much headache, so much of stress when you are sort of detailing for the next stages of the project. So yeah, keep your models clean, top tip. Now if I hit escape and come out of the group, you will see that I now have the floor plate for the first floor. I've done the ground floor model, walls, the basic areas. I've modeled them. Now let me do the same exercise for the first floor. So for first floor, again, let me isolate the first floor line drawing. As you can see, I've modeled the windows on a separate layer, so let me just close the windows, so I don't want to see them as yet. And there's some lines that are flying, but they're not closed loops at the moment. So what I want to do is, again, you can use some plugins to close these loops and create the internal faces. But the way it works is this. If I double click or triple click, it selects all the connected edges. But SketchUp doesn't know that I'd like to close the face between these two inner and outer walls. So the way I try to force SketchUp into doing that is randomly cut across a line, and then you'll see that it sort of fills up what it thinks is a closed loop. It did not fill that up, but if I try and do that, you can see that that is left. This also makes it easier for SketchUp, for us to find out where the line work is not being drawn properly, or where it can't fill. So if you see that area there, we found the culprit. That's why it was not closing. So it helps you clean up your line drawing. Say you've received a survey in an AutoCAD file and somebody's not sort of joined the corners or left it open, and you don't want to zoom in and zoom out every single corner just to find out why the face is not closing on itself. So this is a quick way to model the face. I was glad that I did not sort of join that face because it gave me an opportunity to show you how we model what problems you can face while doing this measured survey to a 2D drawing to a 3D model. Now if I bring back the other stuff, or just go back, so everything is a closed face. You can see that I can see a face here. So if I bring back everything, I know that the exterior wall goes to that height there. So let me extrude this, and keeping the inference feature, I know that we are going to extrude that to that. Now, the reason, let me just do the cleanup before I move on to the next bit. This is good. I don't need that line. I may need that line. May need that line for the doors. Right. Let's see how this goes. Okay. So the same principle. I select the base of the doors. I know there's a door there, a door there, a door there. I can see something wrong there. Some random stray lines that need to be cleaned up. But for now, yeah, those, and there's a door there. Again, I know that the doors are 2070 high, the openings. So now you will see why I selected all those lines at the same time. I'm able to now just use one instead of switching between commands. I'm able to extrude, push pull between them, and then start cleaning up the lines, those stray lines that we don't need. And you can see that we have another line there. Don't need that line. Don't need that line. Yep, seems to be working good. I'm just checking my notes. Oh, there is actually a door there that I have missed, and the wall is 130. Move it up by 2070 and yep, close. Don't need that line. Great. That's actually a boiler cupboard. It is usually found in this property of this age. So yeah, that's your model. I've just modeled the walls. Now there's one problem that we will see once we start modeling the floor, because the way it works is if I switch on my section planes and reverse this section, you could see that the walls here, now it's not a problem, but the reason why we didn't do why we extended the external wall beyond the underside of the ceiling level is because on the outside we want a continuous wall, but whereas on the inside the internal walls don't continue through to the next floor. So that's why we know that the first floor lines would start, the base of the first floor would start at that level there, and the top of the ground floor wall needs to finish to the underside. So now what we can do is actually I've created some scenes. This is from a template file that I've created. So every time I start a new project, I work within the template file, and these scenes are always there. So if you'd like to know how I use templates to be more efficient, and how these templates work, send me a message and I can explain that to you, probably within a future video or another live stream. So if I click on ground floor, you see that I can only see ground floor now, and if I click on first floor, I can see both ground and first floor together. So let me just go back to ground floor, and what I'm going to do is go into my group and take the ground floor, the floor that I modeled for the ground floor, and copy that, move it and copy it and put it to the top of my floor, because I know the external walls are the same, because they go up to the first floor level. Now what I want to do is cut that from the ground floor, within the ground floor group, go to the first floor group, double click into that. So I'm now into the first floor group. Let me just group these walls and put them on the right layer, and then I go edit, and need to be inside. So if I click on that, you'll see that I modeled this onto 602 first floor layer. So double click into that and say edit, paste. Now what that did was take the floor plate and paste that into the first floor model. So when I now all I've got to do is clean these elements to work, to make it look like make it work with the first floor walls, and I know that is looking good, but I don't need here. This is basically the step that I created for the ground floor entrance. It's not there at first floor level, so I just need to push that back in. And if I hide everything else, then you'll see that there is this step here, which is the step for the first floor. I just need to erase, clean up. I might have said clean up quite a few times now, but it is that important. So that's why my sort of years of experience working on SketchUp has made me realize that that's one of the key takeaways that new people coming into SketchUp don't realize, how much it helps. Okay, so I've cleaned it up, and you can see that that floor is now within the curtilage of the external walls. So now I can remove that box. That was just my guide. And the other thing is, if I now turn back my section plane, you'll see that, oh, it's a good thing again, the mistake that I did. I lined it up with the top of the floor, whereas in reality, it needs, this floor plate needs to line up with the bottom of the floor. So I'll just move that up, inference lock with the blue axis, and do that to the bottom. So it snaps to the bottom of the wall, And if I bring it back, voila, it's nice, clean lines. I just need to do a bit more cleanup because I know that you can see a gap between the top of the first ground floor wall and the ceiling. So if I go back in, bring back everything in the model, then I push pull it and then push pull it and then snap to the top of the wall, and it's good. It's a clean model. The way to know whether things are floating is to use section planes to know if there is a gap instead of moving around. Section planes are a good guide. You can see that. But another trick is if things are not in level, if you see that there is a junction, you can see a solid line between the floor and the wall here. If I were to and you can see a junction line there. So that's my guide. I always need to see a line between the floor and the wall, and if it doesn't line up, you tend to not see that edge. Something's wrong. That is an indication saying something's wrong with your model. So it's again a good practice to just go around and see if you have lines everywhere, and if things are modeled correctly, you will have edge lines on all axes. So I'm just going to put this back, and then once I go outside the group, you'll see that it's all lining up. So let me go back to my first floor scene. Just going to adjust it so that it is centered to the model, not where the template was centered at, and then right click and say update my scene. So the next time I click on my scene, I should be able to see that. I'll do the same for the ground floor. Let me go there, right click, and so update scene. So that's first floor and ground floor, both have been modeled. Hopefully this has been helpful and a bit more information from your regular other YouTube videos or SketchUp videos that you've come across. Again, as I mentioned, the idea is that this is a live project, so everything that I'm doing here, it's live in two instances. It's live as in I'm live streaming live, but also this is an actual real world project. So it's double advantage, I would say. Okay, so moving on. Let's now model. Let's see if we can model. Let's start modeling a door, because that's one of the things that we would like to do next. Doors and windows. Now I have clients in front of that door there, but let me see if I can spot. Okay, let's just use that. Let's just use that first image. Okay, so it has a double door and fixed windows with a fan light on either side. So that's what we're modeling. Now the way I do it is, because this is an existing property and I know that we are looking to create a rear extension to this property, so these doors will disappear. So they are for visual purposes only. So I'm just going to model something quite standard and quick. So started with a basic rectangle. I create an offset. Usually the frames are around 70 mil thick. They're quite chunky, these frames. And the doors were, when I measured it, they were around 550 mil wide. So I'm just gonna create those doors, and then think I'll be creating another frame, 70 mil wide. Let me recheck that. Were they 550? Sorry, 650. So move that another 100. Move that another 100. And then let me create these frames for the fan light. They were around 550. Yeah. And then another 70 mil. So what I tend to do is create the outer frame for these doors first, and it's just like to clean up. So I have the frame with me, and just clean that up. And where we have the door, I know that there is not such a massive frame, so the door, wherever we have the door, it's around 30 mil of threshold basically, and then I double click to select, keep missing these things, but I double click to select and group them. Now the reason I do that is that way I'm able to move this out and this becomes my outer frame. If I were to push pull it and group it, then it would start merging with these other bits that I don't want it to merge with. So I try to do that that way around. Then I give it a thickness. These are usually 80 mil thick. So if I were to hide this, you'll see that I've just created that as my door frame. And then I go on to create the next frame, which is this guy here. It's around 50 mil. Double click, make it a group, and then extrude that. That's around 50 mil of the frame. Now that's a fixed gloss. That's a fixed gloss. I can delete that and just copy that because I know it's equal distance. So so that's a fixed gloss. That's a fixed gloss. Double click, double click. Now we've selected all the gloss. I'll group it and push them back to, again, like I said, this is only visual, so I'm just doing something that usually works for from a presentation point of view. And when it gets to detailed design, if these windows stay and if we are doing some work to that, I put in more effort. But otherwise at this stage it's just visual, so I'm just trying to make it look like that door that we have there. Now I've done the gloss, I've done this inner frame for that. Now comes the door. Now I know that these two doors are equal size, so I triple click and then double click to deselect half door. So I know I'm creating one door. Then I make a component out of it and then just copy it there. So if I model one, the other should get modeled automatically. Then again for the frame, these are quite chunky frames, 70 mil. I group them, push them to 40 mil door, and then this is a gloss. Select it and then push it back to the middle of the door. Great. So I've done that. Now I just select all my gloss and I have this within the template. There's a gloss material which is just black with 50% opacity, and I just apply them wherever I think we have clear gloss. So that's the door, and then just set back the door. Usually they are set back 1 brick thickness, so I just set it back 100 mil, and voila, that's the external door. Now I will try and do that apply the same principle to the external window. So if I see that, it's see that window there. Let's just see that window there. So they seem to be all openable windows, and they have a center frame. Um, Again, these windows will be like a visual representation of the windows rather than very accurately modeled windows. Start with the outer rectangle, do the outer frame 70 mil, then draw the center line and go for so that's 35 and 70. Clean this up, clean that up. So now I've got my outer frame. Go so group that and then push that back 80 mil. Offset that 50, group that, push that back 50. This is the glass, move that back in 50 and give that a gloss material. Again, SketchUp remembers the last material that you applied, so you don't have to select it again. I'm just going to group that so that there are no stray lines. Double click that, delete that, because I know that window is the same size. Oops, didn't snap properly. So select those two, move it there, and Bob's your uncle. And as you can see, that window sits there. I'm just going to move it back one brick, 100 mil into the external wall, and that's how I model the windows. I just realized that we haven't modeled the openings, so let's just do that very quickly. Model the so switch on. So the Windows layer is, I know that I have already put the Windows layer in there somewhere. So yeah, there I can see that that's my first floor and that's my windows. So what I'm doing is I'm doing the same thing that I did previously. I'll move this up, switch on my walls, and I want to move that to the top of the wall. So now I know where my windows are, and bring back everything and start drawing some quick rectangles just roughly around where I know the windows will be. And I have measured the sill height. This is again window to the top. That come to that area. That's slightly different than usual. And yeah, model that. Now, as we did previously, snap and push back. Once you've done that, you can double click, and it should just cut a hole. No windows there. Double tap and double tap. Now let's start with this window and start lining up the jambs. Let's just go around this side and jot it down there, and you can see how this model is coming to take shape. This just helps visualize things better for the client. So I really like the process of it not only helps visualize for visualizations and process for the clients, but it also, as a designer, it helps me understand how this building was put together. So I really enjoy the process of modeling an existing building, which I know then I understand all these heights and levels a bit better, and it just helps me with the next stage when I start working on the proposed models. Okay, so we'll do the same process as before. We know that I'm just going to draw a box and level it up with the first floor level, and I know that these windows are 850 high. So now when we go in, we just line it up, all these windows with that 850 mark, click, drag, click, inference to that. And then I know that we can use the guide this time. So tape measure, pull a guide up to 1600, it's good, and then pull that window up there, and it's done. So clear it up, remove the lines that we don't need. Brilliant, it's taking good shape. And that means that we have all the openings and the walls modeled. So the next step would be to model all these windows, go across, model all the external doors and windows, which is really it's like a good practice. I tend to use again, as I mentioned, I tend to use plugins for creating windows that are repetitive, or sometimes I just model one, and if they nearly match, I just stretch these windows to fit into place. For example, this ground floor window sorry, this ground floor window and this first floor window, they have two casement windows next to each other. So what I tend to do is just copy that, push that there, and this seems to be fitting really well, but I scale, stretch that using the scale tool and snap it in sort of X direction first and then Y direction next. Didn't move that. Funny that. Let's try that again. So move, copy, not just move, and then scale that using the X direction, snap to that area, and scale that using the Y. One of the neat trick is, if you're not able to find the central scale handle, if I actually hide the walls, you can see that each model has an outer bounding box, and they have the edges, the corner vertex handles, and then the middle handles. Usually I tend to scale them from the middle axis. So a neat trick when you're not able to find is like I'm struggling to find the middle handle, scale handle. What I tend to do is switch to a line work mode, and then these appear, and then snap to that, and done. And then switch back to my switch back to the normal mode, so you don't have to use that. That way you're able to stretch it in place, and yeah, it's a quicker way of modeling existing windows. When it is proposed windows and there's more detail involved, you can go into really the level of detail is really up to you, how much you want to model. But I know for sure I'm not going to worry about these windows as long as they look similar to what they have there in the property. So that's that's one of the techniques I use to model things quickly. One of the next step is just to go around modeling all the windows and doors. So I'm not gonna do that in this live stream. I will probably, what would be best is I'll model an internal door, which makes more sense, I think. Internal doors, similar to external doors, you can have plugins, you can download something from 3D warehouse, you can download a model, stick that in, stretch it into place. But again, I like to keep my model simple, so I like to model a door. I like to show you how I model a very simple door. So I start with a basic rectangle, double click to select all edges and face, unselect one edge and the face, use the offset tool, and I know that the doors have a 30mm frame around it. Double click and group it. The same principle as the external doors. Once you've grouped it, it becomes its own. It becomes an individual element, and then you just push it back, push pull it, and I know that the depth is around 120. No, I didn't know that. It's 130. And then the door itself is 30mm thick. So that's my very simple door. It's a door and a frame. When it comes to detailed design, I modeled this door. I modeled the handles, I modeled the architraves and the skirting. But for an existing house, I don't put in that much effort. Next, I copy this door, and then you can either use the move tool and you get these turn handles and rotate them into place, and then move them into that, or let's go one step back, or you use the rotate and snap to that, snap to the edge and turn. So that way you can position these doors. Now I know one thing I've done wrong is all these doors are opening. Oh, something's wrong here. Let me just hide the other. I seem to have deleted the end here. Well, something's happening here. Right, I know what's happened. I've grouped only a face. That's why it did not come. It did not move to the new position, but that's it. And these doors are opening inside, so they are not flush with the outside. They are sort of flush with the inside. So I'm going to flip this. It's a 50-50 chance. It's green. Yes. So flip this on green on the green axis, and the door moves inside. Same here. Flip along green. Door moves inside. Now, as you can see, the door seems to be going into the wall. Let's go to the middle handle and then push this. Scale that into that door opening. Now I know there's a door there, so I'm not going to spend too much time in modeling these doors. I just want to position something in place and try and get to place there. And there you go. One thing I noticed, there's something here, a stray line that we don't need. So again, nice to clean up. There's that term of the day, I'm sure. And I'll just copy these doors into position and scale them if they are not fitting all the openings. There you go. Scale handle, snap to corner, and that's it. That's good. Ooh, this door, let me just close this. This door, I know it's a door to a shower room, and this one was a standard 760 door, but that here is a 680 door. So I'm not going to stretch that into place because the frames will become really thin. So I will have to do, I will have to move this. So let me show you what I did again. So I copied this door, copied this door here, and selected just the right frame, selected the left frame, and if I hide that, you'll see that it selected a bunch of edges and two faces, because this face here goes around the frame. So when I move it, it still will move. So if I did only that, it would stretch that in a very weird way, and instead of going 1, 2 line face, you just draw a box around the thing and then unhide everything, and then snap this corner, snap to that corner, move it, and then snap to the end of the wall. So we can do the same thing for the door. Double click on the door and I select it. Again, this comes from sort of confidence of using the SketchUp or any software for a long period of time, that I know that when I did that, the edge of the door has been selected there. And just to make sure it is, if I go into that sort of hidden line mode, you will see that that edge is selected there. If I go into actually the wireframe mode, you'll see that better. You'll see it's selected the edges and the frame. And switch off that hidden line as well. And then I just move this out and then snap it and move it back to position, and then flip along green, because I know that door is opening inside. The wall seems to be thinner here. These older buildings have wall thicknesses going all over the place. So so that's how I model the internal doors, which is really good. Now, the more complicated part, and I know we are sort of, I was thinking this live stream would be around an hour's time, but I guess the more I'm trying to explain, the longer it's taking me to model this. But the complicated bit for this model would be the roof. And one of the things that I've done by counting bricks in advance is I know that the towards the cable end of this roof, I have sort of that height. So and I know that that is the angle of the roof. So what I could do is take that line, take all that line, and all those lines, and then move it in this axis, because this blue axis, I had to draw this when I was drawing on my iPad. I had to draw this flat, and when I brought this model onto the desktop version, I rotated the section to be vertical. That's why you can see that the blue axis is sort of horizontal, whereas blue axis usually points in the up direction. Now I'm selecting these lines, holding on, locking it to the blue direction, which is going that way, and then snapping it to this edge here, because that's where I'd like my roof to start. That's the outer face of the external wall, and I'm gonna cut that from within the original group and then paste, edit, paste in place, and you can see that that's now uh, given me the shape of the roof. And I know that um, roofs usually have an eave that lines up with the bottom of the windows, sorry, the top of the windows, the lintel, and they project, which I measured around 250 mil out. So I'm now trying to create the shape of the roof, and again, with the roof build up, the type of tiles that we have there, this roof, from where I've measured, so just going back to the image, just going back to the image, that thickness there is roughly around 100 mil, that thickness. So I'm going to offset this roof by 100 millimeters, and then I'm going to take this edge there, take it back on this edge, and then if you hold the shift key, it locks it to that direction, as you can see. So I'm just going to take it out and project it out there, and that actually gives me a good, if I draw a vertical line, then I know that it meets this line. This is the face of the fascia board, so that line meets the roof line. So now I have this end of my roof, and I have to do the same thing to that end. That end is slightly different, but I'll do the same thing. So the fascia board sits in line with the lintel to the windows, and that projects I think around 180 mil, which I think I've snapped it there. Yeah, so that goes, that goes high there, and then I can clean these lines up. I don't need them for now because that roof is now, need that, don't need, yeah, we will need that. Okay, so I've drawn a roof, and then I'm going to extrude that to go up to there, up to that level there, and then clean this, all these lines up, and we don't need those lines, so let me triple click that and make it a group. So that's the part of our roof. Now you can also see the roof generally has an overhang or some sort of a verge flashing. So this roof, I think, projects 100 mil from the edge of the building. So let me just go, before we do that, let's create the gable end to this building, which is quite again a nice trick that nice tip that I would like to show you or give you. So if I hide the roof to start with, let me just explain this principle, and then this would be probably the last thing I'm doing in this live stream. But if you have a wall, and you know that you want to create a gable end in the center of this wall, you draw a line there, you select that, and when you're moving it up in the blue direction, or you're moving it up vertically, it creates your gable end automatically, and all you need to do is give, say, 1800 if you know how high it needs to be. So that's easy. That's a neat trick. But if you have a wall that returns at either end, say you have something that returns there and something that returns there, just let me make it look similar, and then you try to create the gable end. So you do that and you say, okay, I'm just gonna make it a rectangle, and then you try and pull this up. It won't let you pull this up because SketchUp doesn't know how to chart this angle here, because it says, oh, I can't extrapolate that height for you. So there is a way to force SketchUp to move in the vertical direction. So once you start clicking and moving, if you hit the command key, it will force the thing to move, and you can see, hey, this is actually doing what we want. And if I do 1800, it looks fantastic on this side, but then see, look what happens on that side. It just stretches it and triangulates it from all directions, and then you need to start doing like a cleanup model, which is do that and do that doesn't look right anyway. But there is another way to do the gable end for a wall like this, where there are multiple walls returning from this end. So the way to do that is you create you basically, instead of creating the L shape or the return wall, you try and create this rectangle scenario here, which means that you close all the edges and give it just a little bit of extrusion. So let me say like 20 mil extrusion, and then erase these lines that break the horizontal edge. So if I click this line, that's now one continuous line. But if I were to click on this line before, it breaks. It is broken up by these vertical lines that are that were formed as part of the extrusion. So now when I do that and have a line in the middle, it lets me create my gable end. It should, in theory. Yeah, there you go. So I now bring back my roof and take it all the way up there, and that you can see that that's now a really clean line. And here I know that this needs to start at a lower level. So what I'm going to do is we need to do a bit of cleanup on this later on, but because I'm running out of time, I'm just going to push this down. Whoop. I am going to push this down, and then H to hide this down there. There. That's all clean, neat, lovely. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to clean up this edges, separate the internal wall from the external wall. Move this down slightly. Why is it still doing that? Sorry. External wall. Need to break the external wall from the internal wall. So now I can push this down slightly and then select this edge bring back, and then move that. Neat. And then, as I was mentioning, this project's 100 mil. Now, this, let me just remove that. You can see we modeled this edge and we modeled this side really well. Looks really good, and hopefully in another live stream I will model that side and the front of the house. So thank you for joining me today. Please let me know if there are things within the live stream that were not clear. You can send me a text on the YouTube comment section, and I'd be happy to respond and help you out. But hopefully this was helpful, and if you'd like to see more videos and more live streams like this, I'd love to hear from you. Look forward to seeing you all again soon. Yeah, thank you.